Or technically this is an ODM, Object Document Mapper, and not an ORM. But I didn't want to break the flow of ORM, so I had to go with it, okay? Alright, hello class. In this video, we're going to learn about Mongoose. And what Mongoose is an ODM, like we said earlier. And it allows us to connect to our MongoDB database or cluster and manipulate it, like do all the CRUD operations on there. And it's really simplistic. I love Mongoose. Look at this example here. In this example, we can import Mongoose, connect to our database, create a model, create an instance, and save that to a database, all in just 5 lines of code. It's really cool. Even though it's simplistic, it also packs a lot of tools and features and utilities that you can use to optimize your app, which is really nice. I went ahead and I actually Googled the top 10 JavaScript MongoDB ODMs, and Mongoose is number 1, not a surprise, but 22k stars on GitHub. The number 2 has only 1k, and the rest of them, I haven't even heard of them, to be honest. So that's why every time someone thinks ODM or MongoDB in JavaScript, they just think Mongoose. By the way, TypeORM uses MongoDB, so I'm surprised it doesn't show on this list, but whatever. So yeah, although they missed out on having, I don't know why they don't have a logo. They missed out on having like a cool like goose logo. Let's actually find them a logo. Let's Google goose. Let's go to images. Oh, this one. Look at this one, guys. This is proper nightmare fuel. Alright, okay. Let's stop messing around and let's actually get to the code. But before we get to the code, please do like this video. It helps a lot and I appreciate it. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe and hit the bell button so that you don't miss any of these ORM and ODM videos. Cheers. Alright, so let me close this craziness. So for the database, you can either use MongoDB Atlas, which is a really cool service you can use for free to host your Mongo database on the cloud and connect to it. Or you can use as well the community server. You can just download it and it installs MongoDB and also MongoDB Compass, which is a desktop app you can use to connect to your database. I'm using this approach because it eliminates latency, because I'm connecting to a local database instead of connecting to the internet, which makes development faster. But you can use either one, it's kind of the same. So I'm going to go to my desktop, and here I'm going to create a new folder. I'll call it Mongo, and let's open that with VS Code. And here, I'm actually, make this bigger. I'll initialize an npm project, so I'll say npm init-y, and I'll create an entry file, touch server.js, and we need to install the dependencies. So let's actually go back to the documentation of Mongoose, and here go read the docs. Let's go to a quick start. Wait, they do actually have a logo. What's this? Looks like a mouse. What is that? Okay, then they do have a logo, guys. Okay. All right, so we need to run npm install mongoose, and we don't need --save anymore. So let's just copy that, paste that here, and let it run. And we need these 2 lines. Let's copy them, and let's go to our entry file and paste that in. So I import Mongoose, and for me this doesn't change. I am connecting to my local host, although I'm going to add the port. It's always better to be explicit. I think it's 017, and I'm going to name my database Mongo, like that, and leave this so you don't get a warning. And I believe, this returns a promise, so you can just chain .then after it, and then after that, say console log database connected. And after that, let's do a .catch in case it fails to connect, and we can just console log that error. Actually, I can get rid of these curly braces. Let's save that, put some space between that, and let's test if this is working. So let's say node server and hit enter. Okay, we get the deprecation warning and we need to use this flag, but it does say database connected, so that's cool. Let's actually copy that and paste it with the other flag here, so we don't get warnings. Paste that there. Let's connect again. Cool, we only get database connected without any of this these warnings. All right, that's nice. So let's create a database model. Now, of course, MongoDB is schemaless, but what's nice about Mongoose, it allows you to put a schema on your database, so it's kind of reliable and you know what to expect from every model instance, and you have some utilities that come with it. So to create a schema, so we're gonna, actually I'm just gonna type it out. There isn't any clear, documentation is not the best to be honest, but the framework itself is great, or the library. So I'm gonna create a folder called models, and inside of models I'm gonna create, so I'm gonna create users. So I'll say user.js, and here I'll import two things from Mongoose. I'll say const model and schema with uppercase S equals require Mongoose, not MongoDB, Mongoose. And here I'll create the schema, so I'll say const user schema equals new schema. And here, so the first thing is we pass it the fields. So for now, we're gonna have the name, and let's give this type of string, and also email. Let's create all of them. So email, and then a role, and that's a string as well. So this is the simplistic way to create your fields. And here for the options, I'm gonna add timestamps. So I'll say timestamps true, which will add the created at and updated at fields in our model. So here, let's actually export this. So let's say let's create our model first. So const user with uppercase U equals model. And here we need to pass the name of the model. So that's user with uppercase U. And the schema is this user schema. So let's export this. So module.exports equals user. Save that. And now let's go back to our server. Here we can import that. So we'll say const user equals require from the same directory models/user. Now to start fiddling with the database, I'm going to install Express to make it easier for us. So I'm going to open a new terminal and say npm install Express. And here at the top, I'm going to import it. So const express equals require express. Here I'll create a new Express app. So const app equals express as a function. And I'll also use the JSON middleware. So I'll say app.use express.json as a function so that it passes the body for us. Actually, let me move this import a bit up like that. All right. So I'll create the first endpoint, which would be the, so we're gonna do CRUD, right? And we're gonna do CRUD for the user. So we'll say create, update, no, not update, read, update, and delete. And we'll also have find to get one user. All right, so for our create, that will be an app.post, and that will be to users. And here we'll have an async handler, request, response. Oops. So here we're gonna get the name, email, and role from the body. So we'll say const and destructure name, email, and role from the request.body. And here we'll do a try catch block in case it fails. So we'll say const user equals await, and we'll use the user model now. So user.create, and we'll pass these fields. So name. By the way, you can do this. You can just do this request.body, and it will actually take the fields that the schema has. And if you had other fields in the body, it's not going to take them. But I don't like the syntax because it's not readable. So I'm just going to stick with this. So create name, email, and role as an object like that. So this alone should take care of that. And here we'll say return res.json and return that user. Let's do a .catch. And if there's an error, we're just going to console log that error and the return res.status 500.json. We're just going to say error, something went wrong. All right, save that. Now we need to start our app for that, for this endpoint to be available. So actually gonna put this inside of the thing. We'll say app.listen. We're gonna listen on port 5000, and here we're gonna have a callback. And inside this callback, actually I'm gonna make it async, and I'm gonna move this up there. So we'll say await and paste that. And then actually, this is going to be a try catch as well. Or actually, I'm going to keep it as a promise because it's the syntax becomes simpler. So I'm going to remove this async, remove this await, and just move these up like that. And save. I'm going to console log something here, say server up on http://localhost:5000. And after we connect, that's fine. After we connect, it console logs database connected, so that's fine. So let's actually start our app. Now let's actually install nodemon so I don't have to restart it each time. So let's say npm install -d nodemon. And let's go to our package JSON and let's add a script. We don't have a test, so here we'll say start, and this will just nodemon server.js. Save that. Now I'm gonna say npm start. Cool, now it's starting with nodemon. We get server up on localhost 5000 and database connected. So I'm gonna open Insomnia. You can use Postman or Insomnia, they're both the same. Alright, that's cool. I actually have all these endpoints from the last time I did an ORM, so we can follow the same structure. That's nice. So in the last time, we were sending the name and the email and the role, and we got this. So let's see what we get this time. So we already have this endpoint created. So I'm going to run that. Cool. So we get an ID, because this is an object ID, a MongoDB object ID, and we get all the other details, and we get the timestamps as well. So that's nice. We already have records on the database. And if I go to Compass, and let me refresh this, you see created a Mongo database, and inside of that, there's a users collection, and inside of that, we have our user. That's nice. Let's create another one. So let's create Jane Doe, Jane at email, and let's say Jane is a super admin, and let's execute. Cool, we get Jane Doe, and of course, we get the other document if we refresh. All right, that's nice. Now, of course, we don't have any validation right now, so if we send empty fields, it's still going to create a user with empty fields. So let's actually fix that. Let's go back to our code, VS Code. I'm actually going to close this terminal here, and I'm going to close this. Let's go to our user.js. So here, instead of just saying that it's a string, we can make this into an object, give it a type of string, and here we'll say required. You can set this to just true, but I'm going to give it an array and then give the first value of true, and the second value will be the error message that will be returned if this is not met. And the error message will be name must not be empty. Because this is Mongo, this will apply if it's an empty string or if it's not provided at all, if it's null. So let's copy this a few more times. Here, 2 times. But for role, I want this to be an enum, which means it's only a specific array of values. So we can add an enum here, and this will be an array, and our possible values will be user, admin, and super admin. Okay, save that. And now, because we have nodemon, so it already restarted. So if we go back here and now try to create a user, okay, we get something went wrong, but if we open the console, we see that it's actually the validation errors. So let's actually return those validation errors. So here, I'm just gonna return that error instead of just saying something went wrong. And if we go back, we execute that, we get indeed our errors, and we get one for name must not be empty, and we get one for email as well. So that's cool. And if we go to role, make it empty, we'll get another one for role. Or if we make it users, for example, instead of user, we get here role, users is not a valid enum value for role. So that's cool. It's validating for the enum as well. And then now let's say I'll put my name, Ahmed Hadju, and I'll put my email. So I'm going to put my class email at gmail.com, run that. Oh, actually, this should be user. Cool, I get my user back. So that's created successfully. So we have some sort of like a CRUD validation that's working. Let's say we wanted to validate the email as well, because if we now send an email that's just something like this, it's still going to create it. And also, it's going to create 2 records with the same email. So that's not the behavior that we want. So what we can do is at email here, we can add a unique constraint. So unique and set that to true, which will check if this value exists before persisting it. And Mongoose by default doesn't have a validator for emails, but let me copy this link from off screen. Where is it? Yep, it's here. All right, paste that here. So I have this Stack Overflow issue, and this guy has put a really cool regular expression for validating emails. So we could just copy this. And what's cool about Mongoose, you can employ your own custom validator. So under required here, we can say validate and then pass it as an object and pass a validator function. And this takes the value that it receives. This value is an argument, so we can name it anything. I'm just going to name it email. And then here I'm going to do return. Actually, I'm going to store that regular expression up here. So we'll say const email regex equals and paste that in. And then here we'll say email regex dot test, and then we pass this email that we received. So if this returns true, that means the validation is successful. If it's false, it's going to return a message which will say here email or must be a valid email address. Save that. Now if we go here, we execute this. It says must be a valid email address, and actually we could add, so here for the message we can have like a callback function with the props, and this props includes the value that we have sent. So if we make these backticks, so make them backticks, we can here do $ curly brace props dot value, and here we can say is not a valid email, like that. If we run this, it's gonna say class is not a valid email, and if I say Ahmed here, it's gonna say Ahmed's not a valid email. So that's cool. It's getting the value and it's telling you what you put is not actually a valid email address. And if we say valid at email.com, run that, it actually executes it. So that's cool. If I run this again, oh, I should get an error, but I'm not. Maybe I'll have to restart it. Let me restart it just in case. All right, run that. Okay, we're getting a deprecation warning here. Collection.ensure index is deprecated. I don't know where this is coming from. I'm gonna have to investigate it and let you know maybe later. But I think this because the collection is already being created. So here in the collection, I'm gonna go to. Okay, there's no other index. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna delete it. So drop that collection, users, and gonna restart this. I'm gonna send that and send it again. All right, cool. So now we get the Mongo error for validating email because it's not actually unique. That's been already created. So if I refresh here, get Mongo users, and now if I change this valid to send that, this is created because it doesn't exist already on the database. All right, so I had to drop it so that it adds that constraint on top of it. All right, that's validation and creating an object. Let's continue with the rest of the routes. So read will actually get all the users. So I'm just going to copy this, make some space, paste that there. And this will be a get, and it will be a /users. And we don't need anything from the body. And here we'll say const users equal await user dot here we'll say find. And we don't pass anything because we just want to find all the users. And here we'll say return users. I'm actually going to do the rest and then test all of them. So for update, let's copy that. For update, it's going to be a put request to /users /do colon ID. And let's get the ID. So const ID equals request.params.id. And let's also get the name, the email, and the role from the body. So equals request.body. And here, let's get that user. So here we'll say const user equals await user dot. Actually, we have an ID, so we can say find by ID, and we pass the ID. And now that we have the user, we'll say user dot name equals name, and we can repeat this 2 more times. Replace this with email, Control D, role, and now we need to save it. So we'll say await user dot save. And now we just return the user. All right, save that. I'm gonna finish the rest, and then we're gonna test all of them, like I said. So let's just copy this, paste that under delete, and change this HTTP method to delete. And this is fine, and we don't need anything from the body. We're gonna find the user and then remove these and say await user dot, is it delete or remove? Or actually, oh, I was using user, the instance. I need to use, actually, yeah, I don't need, I can remove that. We don't need the user because we're gonna delete it. And here we'll say find, find by ID and delete and pass the ID. And of course we don't have the user anymore, so we're gonna return a body, a JSON body with a message that says user deleted successfully. All right, now let's do one more, and this will be the find. So this will be a get to the same route. We're gonna get the ID, and here we're just gonna find by ID, and okay, let's put this into a variable, not equal user, so const user equals all of that, and then here we return the user as a JSON. All right, let's save. That was a lot of routes. Let's test all of them. So we'll start with getting all the users. So let's go to Insomnia. So read, and here, ignore this. This is from the old tutorial. I'm gonna run this. All right, cool. So we get all the users with their IDs and everything. That's nice. Let's try to update my user, Ahmed, and actually set a proper email. So here, let's go to update and paste that up there. And I'm gonna change the name. Actually, my name is fine, so I'm just gonna omit name. And here for email, I'm gonna change that, say ahmed@hadtru.com. And role, I'm gonna make myself an admin. Run that. Okay, name must not be empty. Okay, because we didn't provide a name, it sets that name to a null value because we didn't send anything. What we can do here, a simple workaround is let's not control alt and select here, and we can say this or user.name, and here we'll say email, and here we'll say role. So if they are like null, then we just keep the same values. So let's go back, save that, and let's go back, run this. There we go. We get my email has changed, my role has changed, but my name hasn't. I mean, yeah, my name hasn't. And if you notice here, the updated at has changed because, it's not the same. I just updated it. All right, cool. So now if we go back to the read, of course, that's changed. And let's say we want to delete this user, the second one. So let's copy the ID, go to delete. So /users / paste that ID, and it's the delete method. Run that, and we get user deleted successfully. So we go back to the read and we execute this. We get just one user. Cool. So that user was deleted. And the same if we want to find this user, we copy the ID, we go to the find, we paste that, so /users / the ID, and we get that. Cool. So we get that user, and it's just that singular object of that user. All right, so that's all the CRUD routes for users. Now we can move on and create a post model and set up like a relation between the post and the user, even though this is not SQL, but you can set up relations in Mongo as well. There are a couple of ways of doing this in Mongo. First is you can actually, inside the user model, you can have something like this, posts, and do an array and then set up your post schema here so that all the posts of a user will be stored in the same object as the user. Now, this is not a very good practice because it depends on the app. So if you have, let's say, for example, address, that's a good example because I saw it in the documentation, I didn't make it up. Address is something that you have just once and it's only one. So you can store it in that document. And if, let's say, you had like interests or something really small, but for something like posts, you can't store them on the user because there is an upper limit to how big a document can get, which is 16 megabytes. And even if you don't reach that limit, you don't want to fetch all of the posts, even if you wanted to just fetch just some details about the user. You can also do a different approach, which here where you store references. So this will be like IDs of that user, of the posts of the user. But this is what can get massive. Imagine this is Twitter and a user has more than 10,000 tweets. This might exceed that 16 megabytes. So the other approach, which is the best, is in your post model. So let's go ahead and create a post model. I'm just going to copy all of this. And in the same directory, I'm going to create a new file, post.js, and paste all of that. So I'll remove the email regex, and I'll remove all the fields. And here I'll name this post schema, and this will be post, and these two as well will be post, and this will be with lowercase. So now for the schema for the post, I want to have a title, and this will be of type string, and it's required, so we'll say required and pass an array, that's true, and the value will say title must not be empty. And we'll have a body. I'm just gonna say it's a string because this can be empty, and I'll put a slug, which is what you see in a URL, which will be made from the title, and this will be a string as well. And now, so that we know who posted this this post, we'll have a user, and this will be an object. The type will be schema.types.object ID, and here we're gonna give it a reference, so ref, and this will be to the model of user. So this will tell Mongo this is gonna be an ID, but when you want to fetch the model that corresponds to this ID, look for the user model. So this refers to the user. So now Mongo will be able to fetch the user that posted this post just from this ID that will be stored here. So let's see this in action. Let's go, I'm gonna save the user. I don't know why I changed here, but I saved it. All right, let's go back to the server, and here I'll create 2 more routes for posts. And this one will be create, I'll call it create a post, and this will be read, which will be get all posts. All right, this will be app.post to /posts, and this will have an async handler, so async request response, and we'll do an arrow function. So obviously we don't have authentication, but what we're gonna do, we're gonna send the user ID through the body, and then we're gonna assign that post to that user, which is demonstrating Mongoose and not JavaScript. So this approach will do just fine for now. So I'll do const, and I'll destructure user ID from the body, from the body, this is the post body, and the title as well. So we'll say equals request.body. And here let's do our try catch block, try catch. If I get an error, I'm gonna console log it, and I'm gonna say return res.status 500.json error. If we need the error, we're gonna put it later, but for now we're just gonna say something went wrong. And here in our try catch block, let's get the user first, because if the user doesn't exist, we need to error out, because we're not gonna create a post if we don't find the user. Which actually, now that I say this, it reminded me that there was mistakes up here. Okay, I need to fix something up here. Yeah, here. So this is a problem, because if this ID belongs to a user that doesn't exist, this is gonna be null, and this is gonna error out. So what I'm gonna do, here you can just chain or fail. Actually, let me demonstrate before without failing, right? So this is update, right? This is to update a user. So let's go back. So we have update here. Let's say I want to change this F to a D, which is a user that doesn't exist in the database. Send this. And was our server not running? Okay, there's a syntax error. Yeah, here. I'm just going to comment this for now and save. And it restarted. All right, so if I send this, we get internal server error. And if I look at that, it says cannot read property name of null, because right here, this is null, like we said. So what we can do is we can say if not user, then throw like an error, but instead we can just simply chain or fail, which will throw an error if it doesn't find a user. So let's see what that does. So now if I run this, we get that error, but at least it prevents it from proceeding to here and trying to save something to the database. I'm just gonna double check if it's yeah, I think this we need to chain or fail as well, because if it doesn't find that ID, it should fail instead of just saying user deleted successfully. All right, so that's maybe here as well to find the user, or fail. So we know this is just for finding. If we get an error, that means we just didn't find that user. So here, instead of saying 500, we can say 404, and the error will be an object with an error that says user not found. So we go to the find, we run this, we get that user, we make the ID wrong, we get 404 user not found. All right, so that's cool. All right, let's go back to creating a post. So here we get the user, const user equals await user dot find by ID, pass the ID and chain or fail. And now let's create that post. So const post equals await post dot create, and now let's pass it the title, the body, and we have a slug which we'll create here from the title. So I'm actually gonna Google create a slug JavaScript. This. Okay, wait. I think it's just slug. I found the. Yeah, I think it's this one. No, it's not. Okay, it's this. All right, that took a while. All right, let me copy this. Thanks to this guy, I started. I'm gonna go. Actually, I'm just gonna put it here. I'm gonna rename this to Slugify. Slugify. So now the slug will be Slugify, the title. And now we need to pass the user, which is just this user. Or actually, no, this user will be the user.id. So user.id. So now let's return that post. So we'll say return res.json post. Let's save that. Now let's go to Insomnia. Let's go to create a post. User UID. This is going to be user ID now. So user ID. And the body will say hello world. And the user ID, let's go to read. Let's take my user ID. Let's create actually another user just to have more data to work with. So John Doe, John at email, and John is an admin. Save that. Let's go to create a user post. So slash posts and a post request. Paste that user ID and run that. Okay, we get something went wrong. Let's check the console. ID is not defined. Okay, user ID. Oh yeah, okay, this ID is undefined. Of course, it's user ID. All right, let's go back, run that. Okay, still something went wrong. Can't read property replace with undefined. Okay. Oh, I need to actually pass a title, which just shows me another problem that just occurred. So the title will be hello world. And the body will be, let's say, this is the body of the post. Very creative. Okay, run it. Cool, we get an object. And of course, if we go to Compass, refresh this in our post, we get that post here, and the user is an object ID that refers to the user that posted this. Cool, so that's working. And also the slug is created from the title, and it's working just fine. But the problem with this approach is that if I don't give a title, it's just gonna error because of the function and not because of the validation. So what we need to do is let's move this Slugify function all the way here, cut it. Let's go to the post model, paste that here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna create that post with the body and the title and remove the slug from here in the create call. And inside the post, we're going to use a hook for the post schema. So what we have from Mongoose, we can say post schema dot, we have pre and we have post, which are before and after. So we'll use before, so pre, and then we'll pass the event, and the event is save. So what this does basically is we're saying, so let's do a function, and then we're going to do something here. So before we save this document into our database, into our collection, let's do something with it. So the slug should be generated here. So we'll say this, which refers to this instance, not the class, dot slug equals slugify, slugify, and then we pass it this dot title, which we already have from above. And if we don't have a title, we will not even reach this because the validation itself will fail. So that's cool. So we go back here and save everything. Now if we go back here and let's say we don't have a title and we don't have a body, not having a body is okay because it's not required, but this should error because of validation. So we run that. Okay, I'm just gonna return the error. Yeah, because now we only get error, validation errors, so we can return those. So here we'll have status code 400 because it's validation error, and we'll return error like that. All right, if we run it now, we actually get title must not be empty. So that's working. So now we go back, we say hello world, or maybe a different title, second post, and exclamation marks. This is the second post. Save that. All right, so we get the second post and we get slug second post with a dash, so that's working. And it's working after the validation, so we don't have to worry about it. Let's write the read post endpoint, and also let's make it so that it fetches the user with it, like this example here. So I'm just gonna copy this, paste that here, change this into a get, and that will be to slash posts. We don't have anything from the body, and we don't need to fetch a user. And actually I'm just gonna remove all of that and say const posts equals await post dot find, like that, and return the posts. Now if I go there, execute it, it's gonna get them but without the user. To get the user, we can simply say dot populate, and we will populate the user path like that, save. Now run that, it's gonna actually get the user that posted this post, which in this case is both me, but you know, if it was someone else, it would just work. Actually, let's make it someone else, just to prove a point. Gonna take this ID of John Doe, go to create, I paste that there, and here we'll say post from John, and here in the body it's just gonna be some gibberish, because John is crazy. All right, save that. All right, cool. So if we go back to the read, we'll get all those posts, and we get the post from John right here. And there we go, we get John attached to it. Now, of course, let's say these user endpoints are admin control endpoints, so it's okay for us to see all the fields there. But let's say these posts are public routes. So in this example, of course, we don't want to see the user's email and the user's ID. So we can simply, inside the populate, let's give a second argument, which is it says what fields to select and what not to select. And we can just say minus, which will remove one field from being selected. And we'll say email, and then do space minus underscore ID to remove these two fields. So save that. Let's run that again. And there we go. We get the user, and it's without the email and without the ID. So it's the exact behavior that we wanted to achieve. All right, so that's almost everything that you're gonna need. Well, not everything, but the crucial 90% practical stuff that you will need to use and to get started with MongoDB. So if you learned something, please do like this video and subscribe if you haven't, and let me know in the comments if you have used already MongoDB and you use this to refresh on it, or you really like it and now you're gonna use it. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.